Hey, what's up, everybody? How you guys doing? Hope that you're having a good week so far. We're halfway through the week, and I guess it's symbolic that I'm doing this video now in the middle of the week because I feel like the hot button issue this week is the Jake Paul thing, right? And obviously, everyone's talking about him and Triller and all that because there was just the Triller on pay-per-view card last Saturday here in Atlanta, where I'm based now. I was there covering the event for Ring TV. And I've just seen a lot of different posts and a lot of different takes on this. But not surprisingly at all, it seems that there's a real divide right down the middle with boxing fans and boxing media on Jake Paul and Triller and how all this is happening and why he's so popular, why this is working right now, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems that in all things in life now, particularly in media, but really in all facets of life, everything gets divided into two sides. It's never three or four sides. It's always two, because at least in America, that just seems to be the American way, particularly in the media right now. And people do not take a nuanced, moderate, objective position on these things. They find a side and they kind of bury themselves far, far, far on whatever side they choose. And they end up having an extremist kind of position. And so that's where we are. So I've seen people in media, tied to media, and then, fans and podcasts and all this talking about it this week. And there seems to be two main takes. In one take, the first one is Jake Paul, Triller, as we know it, in boxing would not exist right now if we were getting the big fights, if guys like Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford were fighting, if Gervonta Davis was fighting anybody and not fighting on pay-per-view, fighting anyone who had a chance to win. If fights like that were happening, if AJ and Fury had already fought or already, the fight was signed and they were going to fight twice this year in May, in September, right? And then maybe Wilder fights the winner. Like if those fights were already signed and lined up, then Jake Paul in boxing wouldn't exist, and Triller as it exists right now in boxing wouldn't be around, or it wouldn't be as popular. That's one side of the debate. The other side of the debate is boxing is better than it's ever been. You're getting great fights all the time, and Jake Paul is cashing in because boxing's doing so good. He sees all the money in boxing. There are a few MMA guys that have crossed over and made a little bit of that boxing money. And Jake Paul sees that. He likes boxing. He wrestled in high school. He was a combat sports athlete in high school. So he's learned a little bit about boxing, and he kind of found a niche for himself. And he's just kind of taking advantage of all the success in boxing right now, because you're getting so many good fights around the world all the time, and boxing's more popular and healthy than it's ever been. And it's a side effect of all that health and prosperity that a guy like Jake Paul can succeed. So none of those statements, none of those sides are 100% correct, okay? But I would say the first group is closer to the truth. So here's the reality. And some people are just, I think a lot of people in the American media and people trying to work their way up in the American boxing media really want to kind of ride that company line and toe the company line and not step over it and not really tell the truth about certain issues. And that's how they will continue to move up that ladder, because they're playing the corporate game. And I get that, whatever. If that's your thing and that's, if you can sleep at night, good for you. But for me, I got to tell the truth about shit like this. And for anybody that is paying attention, boxing has been marginalized with the casual sports fan in the United States for decades now. I'm not saying that boxing's dead. I'm not one of those guys. I think that's ridiculous when people say boxing's dead, because when you put a real good fight together, people pay attention and it crosses over. It breaks through to the mainstream and people pay attention. At the beginning of last year, when Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fought their rematch, that broke through. That event trended, okay? And that wasn't a circus act. That wasn't Jake Paul. That wasn't celebrity boxing. That wasn't boxing versus MMA, some kind of crossover event. That wasn't Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. That was a circus act. This was legitimate boxing. Two of the top 5 heavyweights in the world fighting against each other. At that time, they were the top 2 rated heavyweights in the world, fighting a rematch, and that broke through, right? So if you put on big events, Lomachenko Lopez, that was watched by 3 million people. And for Teofimo Lopez, who's a tiny little dude, walks around at 135, and Lomachenko is non-American, barely speaks. I mean, he speaks English, but it's not beautiful, perfect English for the middle America, Joe Sixpack, casual sports fan. For those tiny little dudes to do 3 million on ESPN during a time when sports ratings were down across the board, all sports ratings were way, way down. Remember, this was during lockdowns and all that last year. That broke through and did over 3 million views on ESPN. It's not like that was on regular television or anything. That was on cable. Yes, regular cable. It wasn't pay-per-view, but still, that's a great rating. So when you put on good fights, people still pay attention, okay? So the people that say boxing's dead and all that, I'm not one of those people. I think that's ridiculous. If I felt that way, I wouldn't be involved in boxing. And globally, I do agree that globally, boxing is in a very, very good place when you look at what's going on around the world, in Latin America, in different parts of Europe, obviously in the UK, that's a huge hotbed of boxing. In Japan, in different parts of Asia, you have a lot of great boxing now. Parts of Africa, like Nigeria, is producing some great fighters still. Different parts of Africa. So you're getting fighters. Eastern Europe, I should mention, Central Asia, of course. You're still getting great fighters and healthy, thriving boxing scenes all over the world right now, probably more now than ever. I don't think you could deny that. If you look at the pound for pound list right now, and this is something I've talked about extensively on my channel, that if you look at the pound for pound list, it's more global, international, and more diverse than it's ever been. Seriously, in all of boxing history. So yes, globally, I think we're in a good place. But in the United States, the biggest money fights happen. I understand that. Most of the big money fights come here. They mostly come to Vegas. But the big events still come here and everything. I get that. But just because it's making more money doesn't necessarily mean that it's being seen by more people. You could do a fight in Vegas. Floyd Mayweather would do this. He'd fight in Vegas in front of 15,000 rich people, and he would generate more money than Anthony Joshua did in his fight with Vladimir Klitschko, which was seen by over 100 million people globally and was seen by 100,000 people in attendance. But those 100,000 tickets, or it was 90-something thousand tickets, did not make as much as Floyd Mayweather's 15,000 tickets. Or when Canelo and Golovkin fought, the 20,000 tickets they would do in Vegas. Because in Vegas, you're gouging the fans. So what's more important? That you're making more money or that you're being seen by more people? And that's the debate that we get into in boxing media now all the time, and among fans and everything else, right? You see it all over social. People, I call them the purse bid bros, and then the pay-per-view buy rate bros, and the TV ratings bros. They get on and just argue about this shit. It's insane to me. If you look at boxing, and I was born in 1979, so I'm just going to stick with my lifetime, the 80s, 90s, these different decades, okay? This is boxing in the United States is not where it used to be. And if you're denying that, then you got your head in the sand, and you're trying to toe that company line a little bit too much. And, good for you. It's going to get you some work. But Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Terrence Crawford is 33 years old. He's going to turn 34 this year. Errol Spence is, he is 31 years old. Okay. When Ray Leonard, who was born in 1956, when he fought Wilfred Benitez, he was 23. When he fought Roberto Duran the following year, he didn't milk that win for 3-4 years. He fought Roberto Duran the next year. In fact, he fought him twice in 1980. He was 24 years old. Those fights were on ABC, guys. I'm looking here. I'm just looking at the numbers real quick. In their first fight, I believe, was on ABC, and Leonard made upwards of $10 million. Duran got significantly less. I think he only got like $2 million. But because, Leonard was this star coming out of the Olympics, and he was a popular guy already. And then in the rematch, Duran got $8 million and Leonard got $7 million. That once again was on ABC. They paid more than $2.5 million for the rights, which is the highest fee ever paid for a broadcast, for a boxing broadcast on network TV at that time. So $15 million. That was the purse between those two. That was in 1980. I would just want to, real quick, I'm going to do I'm looking up cost of living comparison by year. Because I want to see what $15 million is now. I want to see. I'm looking it up right now. Come on, computer. All right, so we're going to go 1980. In 1980, the combined purse of the two fighters was $15 million. Today, that is $54 million, okay? $54 million in 2021 money. So in 1980, when Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran fought their rematch, and Ray Leonard was 24 years old. He wasn't no damn 33 or 31 years old. 24. This wasn't on no damn pay-per-view or closed circuit. This was on ABC. The combined purse was $15 million. That is equivalent to over $50 million today. So don't tell me that you have to go to pay-per-view to make real money. If you have the networks interested, you can cash in and you can make some legitimate money, okay? And I could keep going with Ray Leonard. 1981, when he turned 25, he fought Thomas Hearns, and that ended up being the fight of the year. These guys were fighting each other in their early to mid-20s. These dudes were fighting killers in their early to mid-20s. I have said this several times, and I'll say it for years. If this was the 1980s, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford would have already fought once, probably would have already fought twice by now. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury would have already fought at least once. They'd probably be about to fight their rematch coming up maybe in May or June. And maybe the winner would go up against Wilder or something. It would have already happened. Gervonta Davis would have already fought somebody with a pulse. He's what, 27 years old? He's about to fight on his second pay-per-view. None of his fights have warranted pay-per-view money. There are guys in his division like Teofimo Lopez that everybody wants him to fight. Everybody wants to see him fight. Before that, people would have loved to have seen him fight Vasily Lomachenko, like Teo did. Teo stepped up and did that fight, non-pay-per-view, by the way. So that's why I think a lot of the media love that Teofimo Lopez got was because when he beat Lomachenko, is because not only because he won and he looked spectacular winning that fight and everything, the way he did it, but he stepped up and took that challenge in his early 20s. It was reminiscent of guys like Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard. They were undefeated fighting killers, right? And they didn't have to do that, especially Leonard. Leonard was a popular guy coming out of the Olympics. He had commercials, endorsement deals. He could have did whatever the hell he wanted to do. But you look at, I mean, dude, 79, 80, 81, the three names I mentioned that he fought 4 times in that span of 3 years. That's amazing. There is nobody in modern boxing history that comes anywhere near that kind of run within a 3-year span, especially in their early 20s. Get the fuck out of here. So that absolutely is part of the issue today as it relates to Jake Paul and Triller. Now, having said all that, even if Spence and Crawford had fought twice already, and Tyson and AJ had fought already once, and we're about to fight a rematch or something like that. Canelo and Golovkin fought 3 times, 3 consecutive years. They fought 3 times. Even if those things were happening, yes, we'd still have Triller. We'd still have Jake Paul. But it would be kind of a side dish to other. It wouldn't be significantly outperforming those cards and those events. It wouldn't be. But what you have right now, guys, is last year, after COVID and the pandemic, PBC has done multiple pay-per-views, right? You had the Charlo doubleheader, which did maybe 100,000. I've heard reports it didn't even break 100,000, regardless of what's reported by the yes men in the media who just want to get corporate jobs. Gervonta Davis's maybe did 200,000. Errol Spence maybe did 250,000 at most. Those pay-per-views, what is that combined? I'm just off the top of my head right here. 600,000, somewhere around that, maybe 600,000. The rumor is that the Paul Askren pay-per-view, or Askew as Michael Buffer said. I can't believe that. I totally forgot to mention that on my show Monday. Michael Buffer called him Ben Askew. But anyway, they're saying this did upwards of 1.5 million buys. Now, even if you want to say, well, dude, this is only $50, okay? The PBC pay-per-views are $80. Okay, so maybe we knock a little bit off that. We'll say, a million buys because we're keeping it equivalent money-wise. It still outperformed those 3 pay-per-views, which featured 4 undefeated American boxing quote-unquote stars. And several of them, like I said, are in their 30s, dude. Errol Spencer's 31. You know what I'm saying? Let me see how old the Charlos are, because I forget. Let's see real quick. You guys are going to have to bear with me as I type. Jermell Charlo is currently 30. He is going to turn 31 this year. So both Charlo brothers will be 31 this year. Dude, these guys are in their 30s, and they haven't stepped up and fought that killer prime opponent. Now, Jermell Charlo is cleaning out the 154 division. I think that division's overrated to a certain degree, but he's cleaning out the division, and I give him full respect for that. So I'll take his name off here. Doesn't need to be fighting on pay-per-view, and to his credit, he's not coming up here in his best fight against Brian Castano. But Jermall Charlo is wasting his career. Gervonta Davis is making money, but he's wasting his career. He hasn't fought anybody who had a chance to win. And then who am I forgetting here? Who am I forgetting? Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford's just wasting away, dude. He's 33. By the time that big cash out money fight happens for him, he's going to be 35, 36. Reflexes will be slowed down enough. He's going to get that. He's going to get the bag, as they say. But the legacy, now, it seems like these dudes now fight for a legacy, that one fight where they get that huge payout at the end of the contract, or at the end of their, sometimes it's the end of their promotional contract, but the end of their career. And that's what they fight for. They hold out and they fight against this B-level opposition to get that big payday. And a lot of times that big payday doesn't even come against an opponent in their prime. You know, it's just crazy to me, man. And if you're denying that, then you're just, again, you have your head in the sand. Deed3440 on the chat says Golovkin waiting for Murata by December is, yeah. Gennady Golovkin has become a businessman, guys. It is what it is. Part of me doesn't blame the guy because of how he was done. But here's the thing. You can only feel so bad for Gennady Golovkin because, yes, he got screwed over by the German promoters. He got screwed over at one point by the WBA. Later on, he got screwed over by the IBF. He got screwed over by the business of boxing in many different ways, the Vegas establishment, like all that stuff. I get it. But he's also made probably about $100 million. His great-grandchildren have fuck you money, right? And not only did he re-sign to fight the rematch with Canelo, he signed a deal with the devil. He went right back to Nevada where he felt he got ripped off. And he upped his money because he said, look, if I'm coming back to Nevada, you're giving me like, I think it was 3 to 5 more points of the purse split. So he got more money, but in a way that's selling your soul, right? So I can only feel so bad for Golovkin when you've made $100 million. There are other guys out there, hundreds, maybe thousands, who have boxed, who have been fucked over way worse than Gennady Golovkin ever was. And they didn't get 1/100th of the money he has earned, right? There are people out there who have absolutely been screwed over by this sport in different ways and haven't even made $1 million in their entire career. And they've been screwed over much worse than Triple G. So I can only feel so bad for him. I like the fight between him and Murata at this point in his career. That's a decent fight. It's going to be a fun event, but I don't care. You know, look, dude, you're not going to fight till December. Man, you need to get your ass in the ring this summer. I don't care. All right. So a lot of you guys out there, back to the Jake Paul thing, because that's what this video is supposed to be about. I just want to, again, real quick, Jose Carlos Ramirez, who's about to fight Josh Taylor. He's 28. Now he's going to be 29 this year. I think Josh Taylor's 30. So they're kind of up there in age. But let's give these guys credit for stepping up and fighting a killer, literally a tough guy. One of the basically taking the best fight they could take at this time in their career, the best possible fight, the hardest possible fight. Those guys deserve some credit. But to go back to eras before, Ray Leonard was 23, I think, when he fought Benitez. He was 24 when he fought Duran twice. He was 25 when he fought Hearns. I'm curious here. Oscar De La Hoya. Let's look up Oscar. Oscar was born in 1973, okay? 1973. Let's remember that. Because I'm trying to think, was the first Trinidad fight 99? Yes, it was. So if he was born in 73, that means he was 26. Yes? He was born in 73. Yeah, he was 26. So when De La Hoya fought Trinidad, 26 years old, mid-20s, that's a throwback. So when guys like Teofimo Lopez step up and take a challenge like he did when he fought Lomachenko, he deserves credit. And for some people out there to be like, well, why you guys, why is the media sucking this guy's balls so much? Dude, he went and did something that De La Hoya did, that Sugar Ray Leonard did, other guys did in eras prior that you just don't see anybody doing anymore, okay? Back to the Jake Paul thing. Because some of you guys are just getting on this chat, I want to make this clear. If YouTube fights and all this stuff, a lot of you guys out there hate it. I'm not a huge fan, okay? I didn't know who the hell Jake Paul was a year or two ago. I'm not saying that to diss the dude. I just didn't know. I didn't know who he was. I'm not 22 years old and I'm heterosexual. I don't know. I didn't know who the hell he was. But I've since learned, and I'm looking here. I just pulled up his thing. This dude has over 7 billion with a B views on YouTube. He has over 20 million followers just on YouTube. That doesn't include, I think he's got over 5 million on Instagram or something. I think it's got 4 million on Twitter. Don't quote me on these numbers 100%, guys. I think it's actually more like 14 million or something on Instagram. Anyway, this dude, when you combine all of his social media followers, you're talking maybe 100 million followers, okay? And billions with a B of views, okay? When you look at the Twitter trends and the Instagram trends this guy gets when he posts something, just in terms of the engagement that it gets, you're talking hundreds of billions of clicks, just hits on his stuff, okay? Right now, streaming in sports, where does streaming live? Streaming lives on apps, right? I talked about this on my show the other day. It lives on apps, whether it's Triller's an app. You guys are watching me right now in an app. YouTube's an app. Twitter's an app. All these things are apps, right? That is the space that Jake Paul lives in, right? And in that space, he is one of the most famous people in the world. Again, to me, because I'm 41 years old, it sounds crazy. It's a generational thing. I don't quite understand it, but it is what it is. So in a sense, okay, to go back, if we were getting all the big fights in boxing today, Jake Paul would probably still be boxing and Triller would still be a thing, because they're not, again, as I said in my show Monday, they're not trying to do what Top Rank and Matchroom and PBC are doing. They're doing the traditional boxing thing. Triller is doing this kind of sideshow circus act. And the thing is, some of you younger guys just don't realize because you don't have the historical reference. But that's been around in boxing since the beginning, dude. Go way back. Boxers have crossed over into wrestling. I think like Joe Louis, after he retired, he dabbled in wrestling. He refereed wrestling matches. We've seen crossover stuff between boxing and wrestling for ages. Muhammad Ali did a MMA fight, I think, or kickboxing, something like that, over in Asia. That stuff is old as boxing itself. There was a boxer, Canadian boxer, who I think Canadian born, who eventually came to America, won a title, all this, that. But I'm talking almost like 80 years ago or something like this. This dude, after he retired, would do a show where he would literally stand on a stage and he could like push all of his weight down into the floor. And he would dare anyone in the room to come up there and lift him up off the stage, and they couldn't do it. So he did this kind of circus act, and he went around the country doing this, maybe around the world, and made a ton of money doing that after boxing. Boxers have retired and gone into acting, all kinds of stuff. So like boxing has been associated with the circus, if you will, and these sideshows and all these other forms of media for ages. And for the record, it's not just boxing. There are charity, celebrity basketball teams and stuff. Like Ice Cube, I think, has a celebrity basketball league that's doing fairly well. I believe, I think it still is. I know he had one for a while. But like baseball, basketball, they do crossover stuff with celebrities all the time. The difference is, here's the difference, in those sports, in baseball and basketball, whatever it is, the best are still playing against the best because there's a playoff system, there's a championship series, right? So in football, it's the Super Bowl. The best teams are playing against the best teams, and you're going to get that every season, no matter what. You can sit out the regular season if you want, but come playoff time, you know that you're getting the best versus the best. And that's why even casual sports fans tune in to the NFL wild card playoffs and the divisional playoffs and all that. Everybody in this country, in the United States, watches the damn Super Bowl. And even if you don't, you certainly know what it is because you're getting the best versus the best. There's still sideshows in football. Guys, there's an arena league. How many of you know that? A lot of you guys overseas may not know. In the United States, we have semi-pro football leagues all over the country. We have an arena league where people play indoors, and it's a smaller field. It's like 50 yards. There's a Canadian football league. There's all these side leagues, right? There's all these celebrity football games and all this stuff. But the NFL is still kicking ass because the best play against the best, right? And they continue to update the sport to go along with modern times and modern media and modern platforms and what the modern consumer wants. That is something that you cannot deny, okay? That is something that we are not doing a good job of in boxing, particularly in the United States. And the biggest issue is fighters not fighting against the best. I could talk about the 5 million titles the WBC and the WBA have. Those are issues. I could talk about, I think the super and junior divisions are a waste of time and they water down the sport. And if we got rid of them tomorrow, it would vastly improve the landscape of the sport. I could talk about several different issues, platforms, network contracts that do sometimes delay and prevent big fights from happening. All those things are true. But the biggest issue in this sport, undeniably, is fighters, the best fighters, not fighting against the best fighters. All platforms are guilty of it, some more than others. And there's a lot of people out there in the American press that are afraid to talk about it truthfully because they don't want to lose that golden ticket. They don't want to lose that job that they have or the potential of one day getting a job because they're networking their way up that ladder. If you talk the truth about this shit, you get shunned and kicked out. So there's very few people that want to tell the truth. But meanwhile, boxing in America is doing this with the casual fan, okay? I mean, there's network money. People talk, okay, Steve Kim and Mario Lopez talked about this on their show this week, the 3 knockdown rule. I think ESPN, the budget for their boxing contract with Top Rank is $84 million a year. I think that's the budget. That's awesome. That's a big number. It is dwarfed by their contracts with major sports leagues, other sports leagues. I can't remember if it's NFL or whoever it is, where it's like hundreds. Actually, I think one of them is over $1 billion, but several of them are hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So boxing is a drop in the bucket of their overall budget. It's great that they're spending $84 million, but it's not even breaking $100 million when you have other sports getting hundreds of millions, if not billions, in their guarantees and their contracts. So let's just be honest about what's going on here, guys. Like, let's be real. And it is part of the reason that Jake Paul and Triller and all these shows are doing so well. It is part of it. I'm not saying that it wouldn't exist at all if boxing was in a healthier place in the United States with casual sports fans. It'd still exist, but it wouldn't be significantly outperforming boxing stars here in America when they go on pay-per-view or when they do their big fights. So for those of you who are just joining this video, I talked about PBC's pay-per-view cards late last year after the pandemic hit. You're talking about the Charlo doubleheader, the Tank Davis pay-per-view, and the Errol Spence pay-per-view. Those combined maybe did 600,000 pay-per-view buys. This Jake Paul show that just happened in Atlanta, that's trending around 1.5 million buys. It's crazy. People are like, how can this happen? Is this a nail in the coffin to boxing? Does this mean boxing's dead? No, of course not. If boxing was dead, then Jake Paul wouldn't be boxing. If boxing was dead, Jake Paul would be doing something else to market himself. He'd pick up another combat sport. He'd be doing MMA. He'd be doing kickboxing. He'd do something else. Boxing was a way for him to make the most money in the quickest amount of time of all martial arts. So that tells you that part of this is because of boxing's health right now. That is part of it. But what I can't help but see and notice and be alarmed at is, once again, every significant American pay-per-view, not Triller related, over the last year and a half was just smoked in one pay-per-view by a boxing novice, a guy who's not really a 100 top-rated boxer. Any 100 or so ranked cruiserweight in the world would beat this guy, right? We all know this. That's not to diss him. He's a beginner. He's a novice. So he wouldn't go up there against any ranked cruiserweight. He'd get destroyed. He'd get beat. Even if he held his own a little bit, he'd still lose. So there's a certain business plan over there, and I understand what they're doing, but game peep game. It is what it is. This dude is a novice, and his pay-per-view shows are outperforming all these other huge, supposedly huge American boxing stars, right? And now because there are allies in the media, there are people that are afraid to talk truth about this stuff. They'll say, oh man, Gervonta Davis is a pay-per-view fighter, man. Errol Spence is a pay-per-view fighter. Really? Now, just fighting on pay-per-view makes you a pay-per-view fighter, according to some. And if a guy like me says, you ain't no damn pay-per-view fighter, you fought on pay-per-view, but 200,000 people bought it. When I think of pay-per-view fighter, I think of Floyd Mayweather. I think of Manny Pacquiao. I think of guys like that. Perhaps Tyson Fury is almost there. In the UK, somebody like Anthony Joshua, obviously. There are a handful of guys. Canelo, obviously. If Canelo and Golovkin fought a third time, casual fans would still buy that. There's maybe 5 or so guys that are truly pay-per-view fighters in this era. None of these other dudes, the Charlo brothers, Gervonta Davis, these guys aren't pay-per-view stars. These guys ain't pay-per-view fighters. They're not fighting the best. They're fighting on pay-per-view. And that's what I mean when I talk about the marginalization of boxing. It's being marginalized. The dollars aren't. These dudes are getting paid. They're getting paid more now than ever. These purses are big. But again, it is worth noting, again, for those of you who just got on here, that rematch between Leonard and Duran back in 1980, combined purse was $15 million. In today's money, that's $54 million. Okay? There aren't many fighters right now fighting and getting a combined purse of $50+ million. There's only a handful of those guys, and there are the names I just mentioned. So outside of those 5, 6, maybe 7 names in the entire world, none of these other dudes are what I would call pay-per-view fighters or superstars. Gervonta Davis, the Charlo brothers, they could walk down the street, any street in America, no one's going to know who the hell they are, for the most part. There are very few boxers now. Now, Floyd Mayweather, if he goes out, people know who he is. Manny Pacquiao, Tyson Fury, and maybe a handful of other guys. But that's it. So the Jake Paul Triller thing, the success of it, and the fact that it's significantly outperforming the rest of the fighters, that is indicative of the issues with American boxing. So let's come full circle with this. Oh, yeah. Hold on. I got a couple of these comments I got to show here. Michael Mendiola, what's up, man? He says, Clarissa Shields is a pay-per-view fighter. Yeah. In her mind, her pay-per-view didn't break 10,000, by the way. Zerto Ramirez is a pay-per-view fighter. Yeah. Well, he tried to promote himself for a while, did a pay-per-view, and then he was like, fuck this. I'm signing with Golden Boy. Dirt and boxing, Max Kellerman. I'm not even going to go there. There's dudes coming up right now that want to be the next Max Kellerman. Those are the dudes I'm more or less talking about. Max Kellerman, he's been bought and paid for ages ago. Lobster 11 says, boxing is perfect for someone like Paul. It's got the most earning potential with the lowest bar for entry, matchmaking wise. I wouldn't say it's got the lowest bar for entry. I mean, the bar for entry in MMA is pretty low too. I've gone to club MMA shows and they literally have pulled dudes out of barroom brawls and shit, and just like in boxing. So the bar of entry for the most part in pretty much all martial arts, unless you're going like it's some international tournament or something, is pretty low. It just is. What it's about though is, look, man, if you're just some dude off the street, if you're just some pizza guy, a pizza boy is fighting a cab driver on the undercard of a club show in Omaha, Nebraska. They're getting $500 each, right? The bar of entry there is extremely low. Jake Paul can fight one of those guys though, and do it on a Triller pay-per-view and get away with it. Because first, for two reasons, but one reason, because he has hundreds of millions of followers on social media, so they can market it and it'll make money. But secondly, because when people complain about the level of opponent, you could be like, dude, I just started this. I'm just getting started. I'm a novice. Now, 5-6 years from now, that will change. But Floyd Mayweather and guys like that, yeah, when he fought Conor McGregor, in terms of boxing, Conor McGregor's a novice, but they could market that fight because he said, this dude is a champion MMA fighter, right? And he was in his physical prime. I think Conor is actually a bigger guy than Floyd, or their equivalent size and strength. So they can market that fight and people bought it. They're like, oh, well, I mean, I knew what that was. I tried to tell you guys, but there was tons of people, millions of people that were like, oh, this is a real fight. Hell yeah. Paul, his bar of entry, as you mentioned, dude, it is even lower because he can ride that, well, I'm a novice and I'm just getting started. He can ride that for a little while. Hamed says, Dan Raphael didn't sound happy with the Triller card on Dan Canobio's podcast. I didn't know Dan Canobio has a podcast. I don't really pay attention to most of those guys. I just think that, look, there's kind of a corporatized side of the boxing press, and those guys, their main duty is to secure their job and keep their job. It's kind of like a politician. Their main job is to get elected and then get reelected and get reelected again, and to continue getting reelected because there's no term limits. Me, yes, I write for Ring and I work with Ring, but I still get to kind of tell the truth and speak my mind, because the guy who runs Ring, he's got ethics and he doesn't bow down to anybody and take shit. And so he lets people on the platform express themselves. So that's just me. I'm just going to tell you guys what's up. And the reality is, as the title of this video says, Jake Paul is not the virus that's killing boxing in America. He's a symptom of it. And it's not 100% one way or the other. Again, I must repeat, even if boxing was as healthy as it was in the 1980s, Jake Paul would still exist. Triller would still exist, because a guy with hundreds of millions of followers who likes boxing, and there's this Triller platform that's not really, their business plan isn't to do traditional boxing. They're kind of doing a sideshow kind of fun circus act. And I mean that in a good way. I don't mean that I'm not dissing it. But they're doing this concert / MMA, slap boxing, celebrity boxing, YouTuber, smorgasbord. That's what they're doing over there. A guy like him, who's smart, and the people around him, the people that he's surrounded himself with, are even smarter. They can see that, and you're like, dude, let's go in here and make this money. He couldn't do that in MMA. He couldn't, because the money isn't there, right? So it does show, again, boxing isn't dead. If boxing was dead, Jake Paul would not be involved in boxing right now. So I'm not that doom and gloom guy. And there are those guys in the media, particularly the older dudes, the BWAA dudes. Those guys are, the boxing is dead. Oh my God. Muhammad Ali, after Muhammad Ali retired, boxing died in their eyes. After Mike Tyson lost to Douglas, boxing was done. That's just where they live in their mind. Boxing is still here. Globally, it's very healthy. But come on, guys, in the United States, yes, certain fighters are making millions and millions of dollars. It's because they're gouging their fans, right? Would you rather get 100,000 people in an arena and charge them $100 a ticket? Or would you rather get 15, 20,000 in a casino and charge them $5,000 a ticket? That is the difference. That's the biggest difference now in boxing in the United States. So that is how I feel on this issue. I mean, obviously, we're going to continue to talk about this, but I don't understand. Again, I'm not this huge fan of Jake Paul. I didn't even know who the hell he was a year or so ago. But I don't understand why some people are so triggered by this dude and so upset about why he's making money, and they don't seem to understand. And some people, particularly some young, naive people, are saying that this is because, boxing's doing great. And I don't know about that, because if it was doing great, then Spence and Crawford would be fighting and their pay-per-view would be drawing over 1 million pay-per-view buys. Guys, Fleeter on the chat asked, do you think Spence versus Crawford will ever fight? No, I don't. I think it's over. And if they ever fight, it'll probably do about 300,000 buys. That's the reality. It won't, I don't think it'll get anywhere near 500,000 pay-per-view buys. That's the truth. Hamed's asking any calls. Nah, not taking no calls, man. This is just kind of an impromptu thing. I just thought, I went out and did my road work. I was thinking about this when I was running. I just ran a few miles today. Just kept it light. I did some hard sparring yesterday. I am sore as hell, man. One of those guys was really powerful. It nailed me with some hard punches. But so I just did some road work, and I was thinking about this, and I wanted to come in and just talk to you guys real quick. Let's see. Yeah. Lobster 11 says Spence and Crawford fight. It's going to be on Triller in 5 years. Dude, we laugh. That might be the truth. They might grossly overpay for that fight and put Jake Paul on the undercard or a guy like Jake Paul. I mean, I don't know where this is all going, okay? But I know it's not going away. That I do know. Soapboxing podcast. Did you get to see my kid fight, bro? You're talking about Quentin Randall out of Houston. Yes, I did. Looked good. Wanted to have him on the show, bro. You want to have him on the show? Both of you guys could come on the show. Just hit me up, and we'll arrange that. I'd like to hear your experience from the fighter trainer perspective, being at that Triller show, because I've talked about it from my perspective as media. I'd like to hear your perspective from inside the ring. How big was that ring, by the way? Because that looked like a 12-foot ring, man. Andrew Smith, if Crawford and Spence had a trilogy with good fights, I think by the end, it would do good numbers, but it would never happen. Exactly, Andrew. That's the point of my video. And I'm rambling here because it's live. This isn't planned out. So I apologize. I'm repeating shit and going all over the place, guys. But this is literally a spur of the moment thing. Like I said, I was running and I was like, let me just go live real quick and jump on here and talk to the guys. But to go back to the Ray Leonard thing, when he was 23, 24, 25, when he fought killers 3 straight years, I mean, Terrence Crawford's 33. So to go back to when he was 25, then we're going back 8 years. That would have been, my brain isn't working right now. That would have been 2013, yo. I'm not even going to go back that far. Let's just say Spence. When did Spence win his first title? Let's look at that. Because that was when he went over and fought Brooke. But what year was that? Maybe 2016? Man, that was 2017. Wow. So he fought Brooke in 2017 for that title. He was already, how old? Because he was born in 90. So he was already 27. Okay. If he would have fought Terrence Crawford the following year, right, in 2018, and then maybe they did a rematch in 2019, a third fight in 2020, something like that. And maybe the third fight got delayed because of COVID, and now they're doing the third fight this year. Something like that. Man, those guys would be making way more money. They would have very successful pay-per-views. I'm not saying these pay-per-views would crack 1 million because they're just not those types of personalities in this era, but they would be successful. The biggest thing would be, let's say if Bud Crawford and Errol Spence fought in 2018, if that first fight was on ESPN, or let's say Fox, let's say Bud, and Top Rank were willing to come over to Fox, or maybe they did some kind of co-promotion between Fox and ESPN, but it wasn't pay-per-view. The fight was broadcast on Fox, and then like the replay was on ESPN, or they worked out some kind of deal like that. That would be the thing, man, because then the rematch goes pay-per-view, right? And that's how you build it up. That's how you build it up in this era. But everybody wants to jump right to the pay-per-view. None of Errol Spence's fights so far have warranted pay-per-view. None of Terrence Crawford's fights have warranted pay-per-view. Yet they've both had, I think Crawford's had 2, and I think Spence has had, 3 pay-per-views? So it is what it is, guys. And that is why you're going to see more Jake Paul. You're going to see more YouTube fights. They get ratings, yo. If somebody has, let me put it to you this way, simple math. If somebody has 10 million YouTube followers, 10 million YouTube subscribers, if 10% if they do a fight and they stream it on YouTube and 10% of their subscribers buy it, that's 1 million buys. If you charge $20, that's $20 million. There are people that are going to look at this and say, holy shit, I don't even need to do what Jake Paul's doing. I've got 100 million followers. I need to get my ass in shape, find the right opponent, and do a pay-per-view show on my YouTube channel, charge $20 to my subscribers. If 10% of them tune in, that's $20 million. So believe you me, we are going to see more of this, okay? I only have like 10,000 subscribers. If I did a fight and I charged $10 and 1,000 people tune in, that's 10 grand for me. Shit, that's pretty good money for me, damn it. Maybe I should think about it. You know, I mean, that's the world we live in, guys. That's these streaming platforms, these apps. That's how they work. That's the new face of media. So we're going to get more of these events. I understand if you don't like it and all that. Look, do I rate Jake Paul as a real boxer? No. He is a licensed professional boxer, though. And I saw one of you guys on the chat right now, or earlier on, saying, you said something to the effect of these Jake Paul fights should be amateur fights. They should not be licensed. I don't know about that, dude. Now, he hasn't fought the best opponents, okay? But I've gone to a lot of club shows, and I've seen guys that they literally pulled from a Tijuana cab stand, flew them across the country here to Atlanta. I saw it just a couple weeks ago. A promoter from Ohio came down here, did a show. There was a couple dudes that he just plucked from Mexico, and he said, look, you get a free ticket to Atlanta. We'll put you up in a hotel. You get to eat lobster and shrimp for a couple nights, and we'll pay for your family to come out. Flew that dude up so that he could get tuned up and knocked out in a round or two by their prospect, send him right back to Mexico. If you're going to sanction that shit and that counts, then Jake Paul's fight should count too. And you all know damn well there are hundreds of fights like that going on every week around the world in this sport. So let's not kid ourselves. The only difference is those guys are making $500, $1,000. Jake Paul's making over $1 million when you factor in pay-per-view upside revenue and stuff like that. He's making high 6 figures guaranteed. That's the difference. So I will grant you that. But that difference exists because of his following. His following tunes in and watches the damn fight. Wow, maybe I should do a pay-per-view. I've got 2 buys right here. Oh, no, I got 1 buy. EPT Rotorsport says, shit, to watch you knock out bum-ass Ego, I'd pay $50. Damn, man. Maybe I should do a pay-per-view. Yeah, but you know what? Ego would probably want, 70% of the purse or some shit. So I don't even know who the hell Ego is. I'm just whoever that, or Ego, maybe I'm saying it wrong. Whoever the hell Ego is, he'd probably want 70% of the purse. Depends on who you fight. Damn it. So I can't fight the gardener who works down the street. I can't just knock some guy out. I can't find some frat boy at the bar and just bring him into my backyard and beat the shit out of him. Damn it. I wanted that easy money. I want that bag. I would buy Montero versus Montoya pay-per-view. Well, that could be entertaining. It's funny. Our names are so alike, man. M-O-N-T, M-O-N-T. The same amount of letters. The first 4 are the same. Wow. Very similar names, but very different personalities. Yeah, hey, look. When I first got to know Gabe, he was a cool guy. I don't know what the hell happened to that dude, but I nothing against him. I wish nothing but the best for him, and I hope that he gets the help and everything that he needs, man. So, anyway, guys, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this. I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm just rambling here. I thought this would be a 10-minute video, and here we are, 50 minutes in. Custer says you guys can have an acting battle too. I will say this. he really, really tried to be an actor. In fact, he still is trying. He does plays and stuff up in the Bay Area, as far as I know. He's never had a real TV gig. And the fact that like I kind of had a couple of friends who were actors that got me to like dabble in it, and I just kind of tried it part-time and ended up booking all this TV work and national commercials and all this shit. That made some dudes real jealous. There's guys on YouTube that call me a failed actor, which is hilarious. Hilarious. Literally, it's something I dabbled in part-time, and I accomplished some things. I still get residuals from those soap operas. Several national commercials too. The national commercials are what pays, dude. It's crazy. I had, I think, 4 episodes of one soap and 3 episodes of another. And then I did a few sitcoms and stuff like that. But those, I get residuals and stuff, but you're on set maybe. Sometimes it was only like 4 hours, but there are times you'll be on set for 8 hours, right? And you get, it ends up being like 2 G's, something like that. But because I did stunts and all this other stuff, which was really fun. But it was interesting the way TV works, because I was punching too fast and too close and too accurate. I was turning over, and you're like, no, dude, you have to go like this. Like the way they want you to punch. And then and I'm like, what the hell is this? So I had to like slow down my punches and like telegraph it. I had to like Wilder it. And anyway, but national commercials, dude, man, you will make 10, 15 G's for one of those. They pay out good. In national print campaigns, I did a national print campaign for Crown Plaza Hotels. I did one for Phoenix University too, which was on like billboards and on bus stations. Like I remember like driving to work one day in LA, and I'm at a light and I turn and there's me and it was in Spanish, University of Phoenix at a bus station, like seat. Now they put those images everywhere. Some of them still pop up from time to time, but MM's best gig, that Wilder gig, good time, or that Halo gig. I'm mixing my comments up here. Yep, Wilder it. Yep, that's what they wanted me to do. Hamed asks, Mike, when can you tell us what happened to your brother Anthony? Will you do a video? Later this year. I don't know exactly when, Hamed, but I will talk about it. I was just thinking next month will be 6 months since his death. It feels like it's been years, dude, but it's only been 5 months. And I've been really dealing with a lot. My whole family has been dealing with a lot with that. So it's absolutely something that I want to talk about with you guys. And because I think that some good could come from it, and I think it'll be therapeutic for me. I don't know if I could get through it right now. The one video I did where I just talked about him for a few minutes, remember, I just made that like an episode of my podcast. That was really hard to do, man. That was really, really hard to do that and get through it without stopping. And so I just don't know if I'm ready yet, man. I think I need a few more months. But I am doing better now than I was a few months ago. I'm definitely doing better. Although my ribs hurt. This dude yesterday nailed me. There was 2 heavyweights in the gym yesterday. And my coach has been easing me back in. I've been doing drills and stuff, but I haven't done full on sparring. And he brought me in with these 2 heavyweights, and both of these dudes are like, oh, we're the same size. And I'm like, no, we're not. You motherfuckers are big. And there's one dude who's a couple inches taller than me. I think he was a college football player or something. Shoulders out to here. He was just a big dude. And these dudes were not keeping it light. They were like, all right, you want to get in here? We're just going to give it to you 100%. And they went hard. Those first couple rounds, holy shit. And then, I got my rhythm a little bit, and I ended up getting some shots and I actually bloodied up both their noses. So I felt better about that. My brand new gloves that I just tried for the first time yesterday already got blood on them, but it wasn't my blood. So that's a good thing. And yeah, some of you guys were dissing me for the face bar headgear when you saw the picture. Look, man, I've never used that headgear before. It was on sale. It was Rival. They make good shit. I wanted to try it. I've never tried it. The one thing I don't like is, I could not see looping punches. Because it comes up right here, the padding. And, when you turn, you just cannot see. I kept getting hit with looping shots. The straight shots, I see everything, could block that, parry it, whatever. But when they loop shots, particularly to the body, I didn't see that shit coming. So I don't know. I might have to get the old school open headgear, because the bar here is great. That bar was actually really great. It obstructed my breathing a little bit in my nose, but this was cool because it kind of came out. I like that. But it's this part right here that I just did not like, man, because couldn't see, and those looping shots. So I'll give it a few more sessions and see how it feels, if I can adjust and figure out a way to see those looping punches coming. And if I can't, then I got to trash that headgear, man. All right. Well, I don't know how to pronounce your name, dude. I'm just going to call it backwards N. At the next Jake Paul fight, Mr. Montero should punch him in the face during an interview. Why not? It's how it works nowadays, right? Hey, man, if that helps me get the $500,000 payday that Ben Askren, or Ben Askew, as Michael Buffer called him, that he just got, I would do it. I would do it. Hell yeah. All right, guys, we've been going for about an hour. I've enjoyed talking with you and getting out a little bit of my thoughts on this. Of course, it's something we'll continue to talk about, but a round of applause for all you guys for watching this with me and hanging out and chatting with me and for laughing with me. All right. I'm going to get out of here with my lame-ass sound effects. All right, guys. CJ Duncan at the very end gets on with the super chat. My man, CJ, what's up? He says, saving money from the shit show. Yeah, I know you weren't going to pay for that. I don't blame you. Good to hear from you, CJ. It's been a minute since you've been on the chat, bro. Hawker Mustang says, Michael Buffer is 76 years old. Yes, he is. And boy, has he jacked up some names recently. All right, guys, on that note, I am out of here. I'm going to go upstairs and see what the wife is cooking. I think she's cooking salmon tonight, salmon and vegetables. To go eat dinner. And that's that, guys. We'll see you Monday on TNC. I'll see you at the fights.